wiggle, wiggle.
Like
Wiggle, wiggle.
Just like you pull in and you just get spit right out of them, and you just drop in and just smack the lip, whoop, drop down, snap, and then after that you just drop in, you just ride the barrel and get pitted, so pitted like that.
All jokes aside, I almost felt like when putting together this Leopard PTA guide video, this is a subscriber request once again, thank you, that I almost felt like my review on this was going to turn out a little bit like this, because this tank honestly is a very difficult tank to play. As a matter of fact, in a recent video I had come out with ranking all of the tier 9 tanks from best to worst. This actually is one of the worst performing tier 9 tanks. Compared to my favorite tier 9, which is the AMX prototype, I honestly like the prototype almost in every single way compared to the Leopard PTA. Now, the Leopard PTA is very so much the type of tank where you need to get to a position right at the beginning to spot. And there's one of two things you can do. You can either shoot the very first tank you see, typically in a good spotting position. There's going to be, there's a bush somewhere on like center of the map that you can get some cover, so that if you do take a shot, you can very, very quickly get back behind cover. But the thing about the Leopard prototype is it's a medium tank. That is almost more of a light tank. You literally have no armor with this thing. So some of its weaknesses is that this thing has absolutely no armor, but its strengths is that it has great view range and has great maneuverability. So you want to be always putting yourself in a position to utilize those strengths and protect your weakness as much as possible. So you never want to be the focal point. Like I said, at the very beginning of a match, you want to get to an area as quick as you can to spot. And sometimes I won't take the first shot when I do spot someone. Sometimes I'll just wait and see how many other enemies I can detect, because when you do take that first shot, typically you'll get detected. And when you take that shot, you better get behind cover, because most of the time you do get detected. And you need to, like with the Leopard prototype, you have to rely on the landscape a lot. And you also have to be very, very conscientious about where your team is and where the enemy is. So you're constantly having to pay attention to the map, and then you're going with the flow of the results of where your team's positioned and where your enemy is positioned. And that is where I sometimes have kind of a hard time, because this tank relies so much on that. If you end up making decisions without those data points of where your team is, where your enemy is, where they're pushing, where you are in comparison to what's going on the map, you can really find yourself in a very tight position. So honestly, in this one, I got myself in some bad positions. These were just 2 replays back to back, and I had some faults here, but I tried pushing where I had teammates. I tried going around where I knew I could expose other enemies' tanks' weaknesses. So going more through my thought process here, and once again, I'm trying to get to an area as fast as I can to try to spot the enemy. And then what that basically allows to happen is, not only do you get eyes to understand a little bit more of where the enemy is, but your team understands where the enemies are, and that'll help them adjust in position accordingly much quicker, rather than not knowing exactly sometimes where to go. And so here I'm paying attention. I know that I am counting. That is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm counting, and I can see that all their tanks are up here on the hill. So now that's allowing me, I'm paying attention where my team is, and I see this chieftain up here, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go up here and push. We're gonna get in flank and get a great angle, and I'm going to go up here and support him, and this puts us in a really, really good advantageous position, and also in a way kind of a safe position to be able to get a different angle and be able to get some cover as well. So once again, I'm trying to use the landscape, I'm trying to use my team. I was at the beginning trying to use my view range, and not once am I ever putting myself in a position to, one, rely on my armor. If an enemy is ever pointing their cannon at me, I need to, as quickly as possible, get behind some sort of cover, and I need to reposition myself. And that's one thing about the Leopard prototype, is a lot of it is about repositioning, using that mobility, understanding where your enemy, your team is, and then moving in conjunction to what's happening. When you go into a spot and you start noticing when you do spot, now this happens, oh, there's 3 enemies on the right side of the map, there's 2 enemies or whatever, another 3 or 4 on the other side of the map, and you've got more teams pushing on one side toward that weaker side where the enemies are. That's a great area to then go and support that stronger side and try to eliminate that weaker side as much as possible. So this thing, a lot of it is all about your view range. And then from what you're able to detect, understand what they're doing, what your team is doing, and how they're positioning themselves. And that'll help give you an understanding of how to position yourself on the field. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm the best at this tank. Here, even right there, like, I was paying attention. I knew that Japanese destroyer was up on the hill, so I didn't curve and go completely out. I actually stopped and just decided to take him out. I didn't want to get nailed. But that's also about being you want to be paying attention to the map and where the enemies are at all times, because if you slip up, that's where you can really mess up in this thing. So honestly, I have about a 2,000 average damage in this tank. Like I said, I'm not the best player. It's a very, very difficult tank. So when I saw the subscriber request, I completely understand. It's a challenging one. So hopefully this was helpful. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.